I know you read Mein Kampf being a teenager, Hitler's opus magnum, so to speak. Great work, you know. But you read it because I know you were very curious with history. Um, but how many self-declared Nazis, how many of the people applying to join the movement, do you think they really have read Hitler? Or what I'm trying to say is, do you really think many people joining are or were aware of the true meaning of Nazi ideology, or they were simply fascinated by the swastika, the tattoos, the black uniform, which is very cool. I mean, I hate Nazism, but their images are so powerful, you know. So that's something I wanted to ask you.
Um,
Absolutely, please.
I read it at, I know things on the internet said I read it in fourth grade, which is not accurate. I read it at
Okay.
15 though, 15,
Okay.
16 in that area. I did read Mein Kampf. But you're right. A lot of the people coming in do not read that. They're not heavily versed in National Socialism at all. They are just looking for, in some cases, it's because someone had a bad experience with someone of another race. Because, as I said, we would ask people that are not every single person, but people that we came into contact with directly, or that I came into contact with, I would always ask them, well, why is it that you joined? So some people would say, well, the NSM is the only group fighting illegal immigration, because we had border patrols and things going on in California and Arizona on the borders. So some joined for that. Other people would say, well, your rallies bring attention to the cause, so I like that aspect of the NSM. Or you're the only ones talking about the drug epidemics, or you're the ones speaking out against black crime, or different things. Different people would join for different reasons. Some because they had a bad experience from someone of another race, whether it was, they were at a bus stop and a Mexican guy happened to rob them. And this is how the movement's mentality and people wrapped up in extremism think is, now I was robbed by a Mexican, so they must all be bad. And lots of people do this sort of thing. Like, this happened, so all white people are like this, or this happened, so all Asian people are like. It's really erroneous and ridiculous to think. It's once again, it's painting people with this broad brush, where, oh well, they're all like this, or everything fits inside a box. And as you know, especially as a researcher, there's way more nuances and directions for this kind of thought. But to answer your question, I think it was a good one. I don't believe most people read Mein Kampf that are involved in this stuff. I really don't. Another thing, where you're processing, and we're working with different processes and things like that. You're processing things in your mind, why you do what you've done, and looking back over your history and things like that, and you wonder, why did I believe that? Why did I look into that? And one thing I had said to someone I was working with, I said, I had to have been really closed-minded to see these things, because that's the first thing that makes sense, right? Is like, wow, I was so closed-minded. But this is an interesting concept, and I want you to hear me out on this, because I think it's something that needs to be more studied and more looked into. Is the individual said, no, Jeff, the reason you got into the movement was because you were open-minded, you were curious, you were searching for something. And the first thing out of my mouth was, what the heck are you talking about? That doesn't make any dang sense. And no, listen. And he said, it's because you were searching, you were looking for something outside of the box, so to speak. You were looking for something different, something, and unfortunately, what I found was National Socialism, and many other people as well. It could have been something else. It could have been a cult. It could have been extreme communism or something. It could have been any different kind of thing. But for me, it was National Socialism, and I dove into it head first, and I stayed there for 27 years total. But what's interesting about this concept, and this is one of the things we're working at Beyond Barriers, is because the individual often has an open mind in the beginning, they're susceptible to extremism of different kinds. And then once you get caught in it, when you're behind the barriers or in the echo chamber, your mind closes. So that open, curious mind of that young man or woman that's joined in the movement, now all of a sudden they're in the bubble, and boom, the mind is slammed shut. They're not open to anything else anymore. Confirmation bias confirms every racist thought, every Holocaust revisionist thought, any question on anything, and it very quickly becomes that groupthink cult mentality. Getting out, once you're back out, it's like being able to crack the mind back open again. And the process to that is, so the open-mindedness brought this person, and of course everyone's journey is different, but this is going to be for a large percentage of people, I do believe that, is they were open-minded enough to be looking for these strange ideologies that people shouldn't be, looking at. So now we have to use that same concept to reach them, have them sit down and talk to someone like I did with Daryl Davis or Dia Khan. Have them sitting down and recognizing, because you hear stories from different people that have gotten out, and they'll tell their story. You know what? I hated everybody. I just hated everybody. And that's why I was in this violent skinhead movement. I wanted to beat everybody because I hated everybody. I just had this conversation with one of my former security guards in the NSM that's out. He's been out for a year longer than I have. And I told him, I said, people keep saying that everyone getting involved is about hate, that we all know that the hate is developed there. The hate comes, it is a huge part of it, but that is not the motivating factor for 90% of the people that are getting involved. Now you do have that element, and you if someone tells me, if I'm putting myself back as leader of NSM, going back in time, and someone comes to me and says, I'm joining because I hate this, I hate Jews, I hate blacks. If they're telling me that, the first thing that's going through my head is this person a sociopath? Is this person a psychopath? Is this someone that's dangerous, that's going to be dangerous for the organization? So there is those people, and believe me, I've come across a few sociopaths and psychopaths in these kind of movements over the years, but it's not the majority. The majority are joining this out of love, and I know that sounds odd, but this is the thinking. This was my thinking. This is the thinking of very many people in there, that they're being nationalists, they're being patriots, they're going to save their people. This is where it's coming from. This is where it's coming from the heart. And I know that people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. I have no reason to make that up or to lie about it or anything like that. In fact, it actually probably hurts my credibility when I say those kind of things, because the public wants to hear it's all about hate. We wanted to murder millions of people. That's all it was about. And we didn't care about nothing. We were just a bunch of crazy hate mongers. And like I said, hate is developed there, but that is not the motivating factor. What gets people involved in this? If you ask people, if you went and interviewed people from the NSM, from different organizations, and you'd say, well, did you join because you hate people? They'd probably say, I love my people. I love the white race. That's why I'm here. And it's not just propaganda. That's really what they believe. So my associate that I was having this conversation with, he goes, I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. He says, you and I know, he goes, hate burns fast and hard. He says, if you're all about hate, you're going to burn out fast and hard, and then, causing harm to people and damage to people maybe on the way out, but you're not lasting. If you last a year or two in the movement, if you're all on hate, that's a long time. It's usually, you're not going to go 20 years or anything like that motivated on. So these are the different, and I know I'm going off on different directions here, but these are some of the psychological factors that I think academia needs to understand when trying to reach these people, because that's how that's how Daryl and Dia were able to get through to me. And I was in the movement 27 years. So if that tactic worked on someone like me, I believe, and it's the way we proceed with Beyond Barriers and how we reach people too, is if you can show them, look, these are human beings sitting across from you. They have children too. They were children once. They, hearing those stories, like how Daryl was victimized and something similar with Dia as a child, made me rethink my stance on things, thinking, okay, so I believe I'm fighting for my people and all that, but here's these other wonderful people that I never really thought about or considered before, because I couldn't see them. I was behind the barriers. I couldn't see them. I couldn't see their humanity. So after I was able to see their humanity through that vulnerability, them explaining, look, this is what happened to me as a child. This is how that movement that you were part of made me feel. And I'm looking at the big picture and thinking, okay, these are just two people. How many other thousands, millions, hundreds of thousands of people have been affected just like them by this ideology? And then all of a sudden it starts getting very real. You're wondering, what have I done? And that's when the brain opens back up. And as long as the person is not a sociopath or a psychopath or has some sort of mental derangement of that sort, every human being, I believe, has that humanity, has that love. And if that curiosity and that love that brought them in the first place into something like this, we can use that to bring them back out. Those are the concept notes.
It's very comforting, yes. We all want to think in binary terms, black or white, good or evil. I want to think I'm a good person, I'm open-minded, and you were an evil, nasty, ugly monster. But human beings are way more complex. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I think I agree with you. If we want to fight those ideas, if we want to prevent people from entering those horrible paths, we need to understand the reason. And that was my first question. I mean, I know you read Mein Kampf. I know you studied Nazi movement, but I have the feeling many self-declared Nazis, many people joining, they were not really familiar. They simply wanted, and I think you explained it very clearly, they simply wanted to be even a meaning, a reason to be alive. They wanted to be heroes. They wanted to be important. They wanted to stop being afraid. Maybe they were a little bit angry, because we all are angry at some moments, you know. And it's very interesting what you're saying, because I think we can study things like black or white. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I teach World War II to my students, and I always say what Hitler did was horrible. It cannot be justified. Zero justification. I went to Auschwitz myself. It broke my heart. But Dresden being bombed by the Allies was evil. I'm not justifying, not at all. I would never justify. But it's not one or zero. We need to understand the reasons behind hate, and I agree with you. I think that is very, very important. So I think you answered my question. I think you really answered, and you told me, you know, people simply want to express their love, and simply they want to be a reason. They want to be true patriots, and they join a very wrong path. But that's the point.